In the heart of Africa, where the sun kisses the vast plains, lives a creature of unparalleled majesty. This is the realm of the lion. With a powerful roar and an imposing presence, it reigns supreme. But beyond the hunt, their lives are filled with moments of serene rest and deep connection within their pride. Lionesses, the backbone of the pride, share tender moments, strengthening their bonds through gentle grooming. Playful cubs tumble and chase, learning vital skills while bringing joy and energy to the pride. Their habitat, the savanna, teems with diverse life, a complex ecosystem where every creature plays a role. When hunger calls, the lionesses transform into silent hunters, their instincts honed over generations. With incredible patience and coordination, they stalk their prey, a symphony of stealth and strategy unfolding. Then, an explosion of speed and power. The chase begins, a breathtaking display of raw athleticism. Each stride is purposeful, every movement precise, as they close in on their target with unwavering determination. The hunt culminates in a swift, efficient capture, a testament to their incredible strength and teamwork. After the hunt, the pride gathers, sharing the bounty. This communal meal reinforces their social bonds. Tender moments abound as a lioness nurtures her cubs, teaching them the ways of the wild. The male lion, a protector and patriarch, patrols the territory, ensuring the safety of his family. His interactions with the pride are a delicate balance of authority and affection, a true leader. From playful cubs to formidable hunters, every aspect of their lives is a testament to nature's grandeur. As apex predators, lions play a crucial role, maintaining the delicate balance of their ecosystem. Their survival is intertwined with the health of the savanna, a symbol of wild, untamed beauty. Let us cherish and protect these magnificent creatures, ensuring their legacy continues for generations to come.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a real icon, aren't we? We're going to deconstruct the whole legend of the lion to figure out what's really behind that title, the king.
So, let's just jump right in. Why do we call the lion the king? I mean, the answer seems pretty obvious, right? You think of the mane, that incredible roar, just the raw power. But the real story? Oh, it's so much more complex. And honestly, way more fascinating.
Okay, so before we can even get to the biology, we have to talk about the legend. See, the lion, it's never just been an animal to us. For thousands and thousands of years, it's been this powerful symbol woven right into our own story.
I mean, you see a lion, and what's the first word that comes to mind? Power. Just raw, untamable power. It's the very picture of strength, right? The absolute top of the food chain, an apex predator that just commands respect, and maybe a little bit of fear.
And it's not just about brute force, is it? The lion is this universal symbol for bravery. You know the phrase lion-hearted? It's basically shorthand for that incredible courage you see in all our favorite heroes and legends.
And then, of course, there's the big one. Royalty.
We look at a lion and we see majesty, nobility, that divine right to rule. It's like the animal kingdom's own monarch, crowned by nature itself.
And look, this is not some new idea. For literally thousands of years, the lion has been our go-to symbol. We're talking cave walls from 17,000 years ago, all the way to ancient Egypt, where they were symbols of pharaohs, to knights in shining armor, and heck, even to the corporate logos you see today. The meaning has been incredibly consistent. Okay, but that's the legend. That's the story we tell ourselves. Now, let's get into the reality. Because that image you have of a lone, all-powerful king, it's pretty much a myth. A lion's real strength isn't in one animal. It's in its incredibly complex social kingdom, the pride.
And this old African proverb, it really holds the key. The strength of the pride is the lioness. That tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? The real foundation of this kingdom, its heart and its soul, isn't the big guy we call king. It's the lioness.
So when you break down the roles, it completely flips our whole king of the jungle idea on its head. Yeah, the male's job is super important. He's the protector. But the lionesses, they're the ones who provide the food, and they are the stable, permanent core of the entire group.
Let's dig into this a little more, because the contrast is fascinating. The male's rule, it's often short, violent, and temporary. He's there for a few years, maybe. But the lionesses, they are the pride. They're born into it. They live their whole lives in it. And their most important skill isn't just strength. It's the incredibly complex teamwork and strategy it takes to keep everyone fed. And that brings us perfectly to the hunt. This is where you see all that cooperation in action. And it becomes so clear that it's all about strategy, not just pure strength. It's a game of brains and teamwork. Get this, 50 miles per hour. That's how fast a lion can move in a short burst. I mean, that is just pure explosive power, a true apex predator. So you'd think, with that kind of speed, they'd be successful every single time they hunt, right? Well, nope, not even close. Their success rate is only around 30%. Think about that. That means about 7 out of every 10 hunts fail. So what gives? How can an animal that fast and powerful fail so often? The answer, in one word, is teamwork. Success isn't about one lion charging in. It's a carefully planned, coordinated strategy, a multi-stage ambush, really. You've got different lionesses playing different roles. Some are stalking, some are on the flanks, some are driving the prey right into the trap. It's like this beautiful but totally lethal dance of cooperation. And hey, the numbers really don't lie. The lionesses, they're doing about 85% of all the hunting. So yeah, the big male might be the protector, and he might get to eat first, but it's the incredible coordinated effort of the females that's actually putting food on the table for the whole family. So that brings us from the lion's nature to its reality today, and this is where things get serious. Because for all its symbolic power, for all its amazing natural skill, the lion's kingdom is facing a threat that is absolutely unprecedented and incredibly urgent. I mean, the scale of this decline is it's staggering. In less than one human lifetime, the African lion population has dropped by 90%. 90! We're talking from around 200,000 down to maybe 20,000 today. It's just a free fall. And look, this isn't just some vague estimate. This is official. The IUCN, that's the international body that tracks this stuff, officially lists the lion as vulnerable. And the trend? It's still pointing down. The king is in very, very real trouble. So why is this happening? Well, here are the main reasons. And if you look closely, you start to see a theme, don't you? Habitat loss, conflict with humans, poaching, their food disappearing. Just about every major threat comes back to one thing: us. We are the ones who are making their kingdom disappear. And that really leaves us with a final, pretty heavy thought. The lion, this animal we've looked up to for thousands of years as the ultimate symbol of power and endurance, is now becoming a symbol of fragility. And it forces us to ask a really tough question. What is a king without a kingdom? And maybe more importantly, what does it say about us if we're the ones who let it fall?
The lion. I mean, for thousands of years, this animal has been the ultimate symbol of power, of courage, of royalty. It's a figure that's just woven into the very fabric of human culture. But what truly makes this animal the king of beasts?
So, what really makes a king? In this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers of myth and majesty to understand the biological and social reality of, well, one of the most iconic predators on the entire planet.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at its symbolic role as the king of beasts. Then, we'll dive into the anatomy of a predator. After that, we'll explore the incredibly complex life in the pride, break down the art of the hunt, and finally, we have to confront the lion's uncertain future. All right, first up, the king of beasts. You see, to really get a handle on the animal itself, we first have to acknowledge this immense shadow it casts over our collective imagination.
You know, as the old proverb says, the lion has been the king of beasts for 1,000 years. And it's true, we see it carved in ancient stone, we see it painted on cave walls, we even see it emblazoned on modern flags. It just represents this kind of raw, majestic strength that almost no other animal can touch.
But that powerful symbol, it's all built on a biological reality. So let's get into the science with our second section, anatomy of a predator. What are the physical tools a lion has that earn it such a fearsome reputation?
Well, for starters, we're talking about sheer explosive power. A lion can hit a top speed of 80 kilometers per hour. That's about 50 miles per hour. Now, they can't keep it up for long, but in those short, breathtaking bursts that you need for an ambush, that speed is absolutely devastating.
And then there's the roar. It can be heard up to 8 kilometers or 5 miles away. But this isn't just noise. It's an incredibly sophisticated tool. A deep, guttural roar is a territorial warning to any rivals, like a giant keep out sign. And a softer contact roar helps pride members find each other across the vast savanna. It's literally communication on a landscape scale.
And you can't talk about lion anatomy without talking about the striking difference between the sexes. The male, he can weigh up to 250 kilograms, and he has that iconic mane which actually protects his neck during fights. He is built for one primary, brutal job, defending his territory and his family from rival males, often in fights to the death. The lioness, on the other hand, is smaller, more agile, and she's the pride's primary hunter. This division of labor is absolutely central to their survival.
And this idea brings us perfectly to our third section, life in the pride. Because unlike most other big cats who live these solitary lives, lions are profoundly social animals. And this is, maybe, the most fascinating thing about them. So, what exactly is a pride? Well, at its core, it's a family. It's a multi-generational group made up of related females. Think sisters, mothers, cousins, all their cubs, and just a few adult males who have literally fought for and won the right to lead. This social unit is the center of a lion's entire world.
And inside that family, everybody has a job. The lionesses are the real heart of the pride. They work together to hunt, they raise all the cubs communally, and they defend their immediate territory. The resident males, they patrol the wider boundaries, and their lives are just a constant battle against nomadic males trying to take over. And the cubs? Well, their job is to learn, to play, and most importantly, to survive to the next generation.
So, here's the crucial point, the real takeaway. While that powerful male might be the symbolic king, the true enduring power behind the throne is this sisterhood of lionesses. Their cooperation and their social bonds are what allow the pride to thrive generation after generation.
And that cooperation is never more critical than during a hunt. Which brings us to section 4, the art of the hunt. This is not a simple act of brute force. It's a highly coordinated tactical operation where the stakes are always life and death.
It usually unfolds in about 4 stages. First, you have the stalk, where the lionesses use every single blade of grass, every shadow, to get impossibly close. Second, they encircle their target, often communicating with just the flick of an ear. Third is the ambush, that sudden, explosive attack. And finally, there's the share, which can be a chaotic but vital affair, where the pride eats according to its hierarchy.
But here's the surprising reality check. Despite all that power and incredible teamwork, most hunts actually end in failure. Their success rate is only around 25%. Think about that. That means for every successful meal, there are roughly 3 failed attempts. It's a constant, brutal struggle because their prey is fast, it's alert, and a single well-placed kick could mean a fatal injury for a hunter.
And that struggle for survival is becoming unimaginably harder. So let's pivot to our final and most critical section, an uncertain future. The greatest challenges lions face today don't come from their prey or from rival predators. They come from us.
The numbers on this timeline are just stark. A century ago, we estimate there were around 200,000 lions roaming Africa. Today, that number has plummeted to around 20,000. We have lost 90% of the population in just a few human generations.
It's staggering.
So what's driving this collapse? Well, the primary threats are all connected. Their habitat is shrinking and being broken up into these tiny, isolated fragments. This forces them into closer contact with humans and livestock, which leads to deadly conflict. And on top of all that, they still face the pressures of poaching, the illegal wildlife trade, and diseases.
But there is a glimmer of hope. The data shows a really clear path forward. In protected areas, like national parks and well-managed reserves, lion populations are largely stable, and in some cases, they're even increasing. Outside of these safe havens, the decline is steep and it's relentless. This proves that conservation efforts, everything from anti-poaching patrols to community-led initiatives that aren't just helpful, they are the only thing standing between the lion and extinction.
So, we're left with this question. After millennia as our ultimate symbol of wildness and power, can we truly imagine a world without its king? The answer to that question is being written right now by all of us.
For centuries, there's one animal that has stood as the ultimate symbol of strength, royalty, and just raw, wild power. The lion. I mean, it's an image so deep in our culture that it feels timeless, almost invincible. But what if I told you that that icon is right on the edge? And this isn't just some vague idea, right? It's literally written into history. The Royal Mint points out that the lion has been a symbol of courage for nearly 1,000 years. It was used by kings who had probably never even seen one. It represents this powerful ideal of untamed majesty. Okay, so that's the powerful symbol. But the reality on the ground today? Well, that's a completely different story. We have to look past the myth of the invincible king to see the tough spot the species is really in. And this is the number that just shatters that whole myth. A projected 50% decline. We're not talking about a slow fade over 100 years. This is a massive drop that many lion populations are facing right now. So where is this happening? We're talking about the vast, unfenced savannas of West, Central, and East Africa. According to a huge study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, this isn't some far-off problem. It's happening fast. And get this, over a span of just 20 years. So what's driving this disaster? Well, researchers point to a kind of perfect storm of threats. First, their homes are just vanishing. Then, the animals they hunt for food, they're disappearing too. And that pushes lions closer to people and their farms, which, you can guess, leads to some really deadly conflicts. And if all that wasn't enough, they're also dealing with unregulated hunting and an illegal trade in their body parts. But here's where the story takes a really fascinating turn, because it's not all doom and gloom. This crisis has actually created a huge divide across the continent, and it's a puzzle that might just show us the future for this incredible species. Just look at this map. It really tells you everything you need to know. You're looking at a tale of two different Africas for the king of beasts. While lions are struggling in some areas, in others, they're actually holding on and even thriving. And if you look at the hard data, it just backs this up completely. In West and Central Africa, populations are in a free fall. In East Africa, one of their classic strongholds, they're also declining. But then, you look at Southern Africa, the population is actually going up. So what on earth is going on? It all boils down to one really big difference: intensive management. In those huge open landscapes, the lion's prey has dropped by as much as 85%. There's not enough money for protection, and human-lion conflict is high. But in the fenced reserves you see in Southern Africa, it's the total opposite. Prey numbers are up, there's more money for management, and those fences, they physically separate lions from people. So you might be wondering, what does this intensive management actually look like in the real world? Well, there's no better way to understand it than by looking at the story of one of the world's most incredible and misunderstood lions. And here it is, the stunning, rare white lion. Now, the first thing we've got to clear up is that this is not an albino animal. It's a totally natural genetic variation, unique to one specific part of South Africa. The sciencey term for it is leucism. It's basically a genetic quirk that reduces the pigment in their fur. But, and this is the cool part, it leaves the color in their eyes, which can be these amazing shades of blue, green, or gold. It's just a beautiful, natural thing. But I mean, come on, look at that coat. It's beautiful for sure, but it raises a pretty obvious question, right? In a world where blending in is everything, how can a giant white predator possibly survive? How could it hunt? For a long time, pretty much everyone just assumed they couldn't. It made sense. But then, scientists actually studied them, and what they found was just, wow. Turns out, their hunting success, basically the same as other lions. Their social skills, forming prides, yep, same thing. Even what they hunted was similar. The long-held idea that their color was a huge disadvantage, it was a total myth. So that begs the question, if they're perfectly capable of surviving, why did they completely disappear from the wild for more than a decade? Well, this timeline tells a story that's all about us, about people. Starting in the 70s, they were systematically taken from their natural home for breeding and hunting programs. It wasn't until 2006 that they were put back, but only inside those safe, managed, fenced-in reserves. Their life in the wild today is completely tied to our protection. So you see, the white lion's story isn't just a cool fact about a unique animal. It's actually a really powerful, and maybe even a little unsettling, symbol for the future of the wild itself. And this is where we hit a really big paradox. The one conservation model that's actually working, the one where lion numbers are going up, relies on fences. The future for the lion might not be in those endless savannas we all picture, but in these carefully managed sanctuaries. The researchers behind that big study said it perfectly. The lion is surviving, sure, but its very role is changing. It might stop being the symbol of these huge natural places and instead become a symbol of our ability to manage and contain nature. And that really leaves us with a huge question, one that goes way beyond just lions. It forces us to think about our whole relationship with nature and what conservation is going to look like from here on out. What does the word wild even mean anymore, when an animal's survival completely depends on a fence? When you think of a lion, what comes to mind? Power, right? Courage, majesty, the undisputed king of the beasts. But what if I told you that behind that powerful, enduring myth, there's a really troubling story unfolding across the African continent? So let's dig into the data and ask a critical question. What is the real story behind the lion's fading roar? You know, for literally centuries, the lion has been this massive symbol in our imagination. You see it everywhere, right? On royal coats of arms, on national flags. It always stands for pride, courage, and strength. And the most incredible part? For many of the cultures that put the lion on their flag, most people had probably never even seen one in real life. Its power was pure legend, built on stories of its ferocity and majesty. But that powerful legend is crashing headfirst into a harsh reality. And that reality really comes down to this one number, 67%. Get this, according to a landmark study, there is a 67% probability that the lion populations in West and Central Africa will be cut in half in just the next 2 decades. Not just decline a little bit, cut in half. That's a staggering figure that just forces you to look past the myth. All right, so that's the perfect setup for our first section, myth versus reality. We're going to really break down this huge gap between the lion we think we know, that invincible king, and the one that's actually out there, living in an incredibly fragile existence today. So, take a look at this map from that same study. It really shows you just how big this problem is. They pulled data from 47 different lion populations. The dark brown spots, that's where lions still are. But all that lighter tan color, that's where they might already be gone. The takeaway here is pretty brutal. Lions are disappearing almost everywhere. This isn't just 1 or 2 small groups in trouble. We're talking about a massive, continent-wide decline, and it's happening fast. So you have to ask, why is this happening? Well, it's a whole mix of things. And pretty much all of it comes back to us, to humans. We're talking about their homes just disappearing as our cities and farms expand. The animals they need to eat are being wiped out by commercial hunting. And then, of course, there's direct conflict when lions and people clash over livestock. Add in some poorly regulated sport hunting, and you've got this perfect storm of pressure coming from every direction. Okay, but here's where the story gets a little more complex. In our next section, A Continent in Crisis, we're going to see that this decline isn't happening the same way everywhere. The lion's fate looks totally different depending on where you are in Africa.
It really is a tale of two Africas for these animals. On one side, you've got West, Central, and East Africa. There, the populations are tanking, and their prey base plummeted by over 50% between 1970 and 2005. But then, you look at Southern Africa. It's a completely different story. Lion populations are actually stable, or even growing, and their prey numbers went up by 24% in that same time, mostly because of intense, well-funded conservation. This chart really drives that point home. It uses a value called lambda to show population growth. It's super simple. If the number is below 1, the population is shrinking. And look, West, Central, and East Africa are both below 1. They're in decline. But then you see Southern Africa sitting pretty above 1. That means that population is actually growing. The data is crystal clear.
So what's their secret sauce down in the South? What are they doing differently? Well, it pretty much boils down to intensive management and resources. We're talking way bigger budgets for conservation. And you're seeing more and more of these smaller, fenced-in reserves where they can really manage the lions closely. Basically, it's a very hands-on approach with a ton of protection and wildlife-proof fencing.
And this whole idea of intense human impact, both the good and the bad, leads us perfectly into a really fascinating case study that mirrors this whole story, the mystery of the white lions. Now, these aren't mythical creatures or a separate species. They're a rare genetic variant of the African lion, historically found in just one specific region of South Africa. For decades, everyone just kind of assumed their striking white coat had to be a huge disadvantage, making them stick out to prey. A beautiful but flawed animal that natural selection would eventually get rid of. But first, a quick science lesson, because this is pretty cool. Their white color isn't albinism. It's a condition called leucism, which is only a partial loss of pigmentation. That's why they have normal colored eyes and skin pigment, unlike a true albino. It's all thanks to a specific recessive gene that has to be inherited from both parents.
So this brings us to the central question that hung over them for so long. Does this color actually make them less fit for survival? Is it a real genetic handicap? Well, for the first time ever, a scientific study set out to answer that, and the results are pretty remarkable. When researchers compared white lions to their tawny relatives on all the key survival metrics, they found no difference. Not in social skills, not in territory behavior, and, here's the big one, not even in hunting success. The conclusion? White lions are perfectly capable apex predators. Okay, so hold on. If they aren't at a natural disadvantage, if they can hunt and socialize just fine, then how on earth did they completely vanish from their natural habitat for 12 straight years? What happened? And this is where the story takes a dark turn. This timeline tells the whole story. It wasn't natural selection that made them disappear. It was human selection. Between the mid-70s and the mid-90s, people systematically captured and removed them from the wild. The white lions and even tawny lions known to carry the gene. They did it for captive breeding and for lucrative trophy hunting programs. This led to a period of total absence in their native habitat until 2006, when, miraculously, white cubs were born in the wild again, proving the recessive gene had somehow survived. This all brings us to our final section, where we pull all these threads together to ask, what does all this mean for the future of the king? I want you to consider this powerful quote from that PNAS study. The intensively managed populations in southern Africa may soon supersede the iconic savanna landscapes in East Africa as the most successful sites for lion conservation. Just let that sink in. This signals a monumental shift in what lion conservation even looks like. The future may be less Lion King and a lot more Jurassic Park. And that leaves us with one last, really provocative question. From the continental decline to the targeted removal of white lions, the data shows a species that is increasingly and perhaps entirely dependent on our management for its survival. So, if lions can only exist in these heavily managed, fenced-in arcs, what does it really mean for a species to be wild in the 21st century? It's a question that challenges the very definition of wilderness and our role within it.